Good morning or afternoon, 6th grade. This is Miss Antonson.
And this is Miss Donaldson.
And this is your video lesson for today. Today's video lesson is poetry lesson number 6 for the steps. Before we get started, you're going to want to make sure that you are ready. You know the champs for the computers. If we see you using them inappropriately, you will be losing that privilege. Today, for your assignment, you need Poetry 6 Literary Terms, Part 1 Extension with the steps in the corner. You will also need something to write with. I would also recommend making sure that you have a hard surface available so that you can do your writing. Let's start with the objective. Today's objective says, I will be able to define and identify imagery, symbolism, and tone with at least 80% accuracy on a multiple choice exit slip. For question 1 on your Do Now, you're going to review this objective and rate your current level of understanding with regards to the objective. As with any other video lesson, if you need time to work or if you need to listen to the directions again, go ahead and pause, rewind if need be, and then restart the video. This can be done simply just by pressing the space bar. If you've answered question number 1, you're ready for question number 2. This is the same thing as every day. Use editing marks to revise the following sentence. Then write the corrected sentence on the lines below. The sentence today is, she wore a long, swirling black dress, a pointed yellow hat, and purple shoes. Go ahead and pause while you complete the corrections for this sentence and restart the video when you're ready to review them. Alright, here are the corrections for this sentence. We see that we capitalized the S for she because it's the beginning of the sentence. The point of focus today is the list embedded within a sentence. So you can see that we put a comma after black dress, and then we put a comma after hat because it shows the different articles of clothing that she was wearing. She wore a black dress, a pointed yellow hat, and purple shoes. We want to put that comma to differentiate between those different items. Notice that we put the comma before and, not after it. Go ahead right now, make sure that your corrections are done, and write the sentence on the lines below. When you're ready to move forward, let's do question number 3. Question number 3 says, Rebecca had never eaten enchiladas before, so she took a small bite and slowly began to chew. 1 minute later, it seemed as though her mouth was on fire. The question asks, what is the author trying to tell you about the enchilada? A, it was not tasty. B, it needed to cool off. C, it was spicy hot. Or D, it needed a little water. Go ahead and pause so you can answer that question, and then we'll review your answer. All right, if you answered letter C, it was spicy hot, then you are correct. Notice that I've crossed out where it says bonus. Because the answer is provided for you in this review, I want you to be able to explain how you knew. So start your sentence with, this is the correct answer because, so go ahead and explain. How did you know that she's talking about how it was spicy hot when she says her mouth was on fire? Finish that sentence, and when you're ready to move on, unpause. Now we're ready for question number 4. Respond to the following question using a complete sentence. Do you like eating enchiladas? Now remember, we are not going to start the sentence with yes or no. We're going to respond using the question in our answers. If you want to be doing a more advanced level, you will include why you do or do not like eating enchiladas in your sentence. Remember that the question is asking you just to write one sentence, not a run-on, not multiple sentences. But be sure you are answering the question. Go ahead and pause while you complete number 4.
Now let's move on to direct instruction. Our directions are to review the definitions we learned yesterday and match each word to its correct definition. The 5 words that we're going to define include number 1, imagery, number 2, symbolism, number 3, tone, number 4, literary device, and number 5, symbol. The definitions are A, the use of symbols to represent things, B, a technique that produces a certain effect in literature, C, the use of words or phrases to create word pictures, D, the writer's attitude toward the subject as seen through the writing, and E, an object, a person, a place, or an event that is used to stand for an idea. Go ahead and match the correct definition with its word by either using a line to match them or writing the letter next to the number. Let's go over the answers together. Number 1, imagery, is C, the use of words or phrases to create word pictures. Number 2, symbolism, is A, the use of symbols to represent things. Number 3, tone, is D, the writer's attitude towards the subject as seen through the writing. Number 4, literary device, is B, a technique that produces a certain effect in literature. And number 5, symbol, is E, an object, a person, a place, or an event that is used to stand for an idea. Let's move on to guided practice. Here we're going to read the following poems, underline any use of imagery, circle any symbols being used, and double underline where you see tone. We're going to annotate or make notes about each of these literary devices. Let's look at example 1. First we'll read it and then we will annotate it. Example number 1, Ode to the West Wind by Percy Shelley. O wild west wind, thou breath of autumn's being, thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing, yellow and black and pale and hectic red, pestilence-stricken multitudes, O thou who chariotest to their dark wintry bed the winged seeds where they lie cold and low, each like a corpse within its grave, until thine azure sister of the spring shall blow her clarion over the dreaming earth, and fill, driving sweet buds like flocks to feed in air, with living hues and odors plain and hill, wild spirit which art moving everywhere, destroyer and preserver, hear, O hear. Let's look at imagery first. Where do we see anything being described or any sensory words like sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch? That's what we want to look for. See if you can underline a few things that are either adjectives describing or sensory words. Go ahead and try now. Some uses of imagery that I see, I'm looking for words that describe. For example, I see yellow, black, pale, red. These are all descriptive words, so I know that imagery is being used in this line. Some more pieces of imagery that I see, or descriptive words, are dark. I also see cold and low. These are descriptive words, so I know imagery is being used. Looking further into the poem, I see the word azure, which we know is the color blue. I see odorous, which means to smell something, so I know that these are examples of imagery. The author is painting a picture for us to imagine something in our minds. Let's go ahead and look for any symbols we see. We're going to circle symbols when we see words that are representative of something else. Remember that a good clue is looking for literary device of figurative language, which can include similes, metaphors, or personification that we've already learned. Go ahead and circle any symbols that you see in the poem. Now I'm going to circle the symbols that I see. Please make sure you're doing at least as much as I'm doing. If you do not have the things that I circle or that I've underlined, you need to write them down at this time. The first symbol I see being used is a metaphor where it says, "O wild west wind." This is a metaphor because the wind is being compared to the Wild West. So therefore, I know that it means something other than a Wild West. The wind is being compared here, so I'm going to write that it's a symbol. And we can, as we go on to read it, it will tell us that it is symbolizing an autumn wind. So Wild West is a symbol for autumn. The next symbol that I see in the poem is a simile, where it says, "The leaves dead are driven like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing." So I know that the leaves are being compared to ghosts, and that the ghosts are not the same thing as leaves. Leaves are being described as things that are dead. Ghosts are also things that are dead. So we see that the ghosts are symbols for things that have passed or of the past. Just like the leaves are being blown away, ghosts are chased away. So this is the past going away. So we are leaving autumn, and as we read on, we're moving into the spring. Now let's look for any tone. Remember that tone is the author's attitude toward the subject. We can see that the subject in this poem is autumn changing to spring. So how does the author feel about autumn and spring and the changing of it, of the season? In the second line, we see that the author is addressing thou when he's talking about autumn. He says, "Thou, presence of the leaves dead." So I'm going to double underline this whole line because he's addressing the leaves of autumn, calling them dead. That creates a tone of passing. Then when we see it changes to spring, he addresses spring as wild spirit, which art moving everywhere, destroyer and preserver, hear, oh, hear, with an exclamation point. So he addresses spring as wild spirit, not thou. So I'm going to underline this line as tone. I'm double underlining it. And hear, oh, hear, with an exclamation point. This tells us the author's attitude about spring is very different from his attitude about autumn, because he's addressing it as wild spirit, which art moving. Hear, oh, hear. Listen, listen. Here comes spring. This creates a tone of welcoming spring, as if he is looking forward to it coming and excited with that exclamation point. If you haven't been taking notes, you need to have at least as much as what's on the page down. So go ahead and write the imagery, symbols, and tone that we found. Now I would like you to look at the question below the poem. We did not do this in yesterday's lesson. However, in order to help us understand our exit slip, where we identify what something is mostly an example of, we're going to answer this question. Which literary term is this mostly an example of? Tone, imagery, or symbolism? And why? Complete the sentence frame. This is mostly an example of, and let us know here if it's tone, imagery, or symbolism. Conclude your sentence with because. This is answering why.